Howdy folks, and welcome back to Constantine's adventure. Last we left her, she had just become the leaders of the Companions by Codlack's spirit, and she decided she wanted none of that for now and headed for Winterhold. While still interested in the Dawnstar Museum, she did want to start her magic education at the College of Winterhold. This is where we currently find her, in Winterhold, heading for the college. Her understanding of the college was that to enter there'd be some semblance of a test. Obviously, she learned this from the dead elf body she found on the mountain a while back in Dawnstar, but once she actually enters, she has no idea what's gonna happen.
To the inn for a drink, of course. Where else could I even go in this god's forsaken town?
And what? You think that'll solve all your problems?
Probably not, but it's worth a try.
Well, that was an interesting argument. She's gonna have to go back and check in on that later. Running up to the college, Constantine is stopped by a high elf named Feralda, who is the gatekeeper, so to speak, but also the one who tests everybody to enter.
Seeking the wisdom of the college. And if, in the process, my presence helps to deter those who might seek to do harm, so be it. The more important question is, why are you here?
She asks why Constantine's here, who responds in kind. To learn magic that will destroy her enemies, because what is power if not the ability to make your enemies suffer?
I see. That power certainly exists, I assure you. Wield it faithfully, and few can withstand you. It would seem that the college has what you seek. The question now is, what can you offer the college?
Her
Not
abilities?
just anyone is allowed inside. Those wishing to enter must show some degree of skill with magic. A small test.
Here's the test that Constantine had read about. She's going to be told she has to cast some level of a spell to prove her ability to work with magic. That's fair, she knows quite a bit, and it's supposed to cast Helping Hand. A spell she's unfamiliar with.
No? Well, if you think
that is admittedly frustrating, and now she thinks this entrance exam is nothing but a side hustle for some pocket change, but fine, she does need to enter, so here's the 30 gold. And then Feralda just straight up teaches her how to cast Healing Hands, so that was nice at least. Having then cast Healing Hands on Feralda, she congratulates Constantine and walks her into the college. Now, Constantine is truly sure this was just a side hustle, but she's now officially in the college, so she really can't complain too much.
Welcome, apprentice. I'll lead you across the bridge. Once you're inside, you'll want to speak with Mirabelle Irvine, our master
Constantine is then told to find Mirabelle Irvine upon entering, as she's the master wizard who actually handles all of the new apprentices. What this means by handles? Who knows, but she's about to find out. The entrance to the college is grand and imposing. The power and knowledge that lies within these walls is something Constantine could only have dreamed of. She does intend at some point to make a stop by the library, as she believes she may also be able to find some information regarding the Dark Brotherhood, as of right now, she really has almost no information on them. Constantine finds Mirabelle having a conversation with a rather annoyed-looking high elf. Something about him really bothers Constantine on a fundamental level, and she makes a mental note not to interact with him ever, if at all possible.
You are a guest of the college, here at the pleasure of the Archmage. I hope you appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, of course. The Archmage has my thanks.
Very good. Then we're done. Welcome to the college. Another new student. I'm surprised at how many of you there are lately. Well, first you'll need these. While you're not required to wear them, you may find them more to your liking than...
Speaking with Mirabelle, she seems surprised about Constantine being a new student, but hey, the more apprentices there are, in theory, the more potential individuals there will be to help train with.
Wonderful.
She did hand Constantine some robes, but robes aren't really her style, so she accepts them, but puts them away. Mirabelle then leads Constantine to the apprentices' rooms. She even gets a room to herself, which is fantastic.
keep your voice down
She
while
now
you
has
study,
a,
as
albeit
others may be
small,
working on
starting
research
base of
or
operations here in
delicate
Winterhold.
experiments. Now I'll show you to your quarters. You're going to be sharing space with your fellow apprentices, who you'll meet shortly.
The room really was small, but it's got a bed, a desk, and just enough space to stand in. That being said, they did furnish it with a few things that she could take, so that was very nice of them.
This is where
Mirabelle
you'll be
then
staying.
told her to go to the
This
Hall
bed
of
and
Elements,
desk are
where
yours.
Tolfdir would be giving a
Please try and
lecture
be
to the new
considerate of
apprentices.
others. Now, let's go back to the Hall of the Elements, where most of the members gather for lectures and study sessions. Most esteemed wizards.
Having walked back outside, she really does marvel at the college. It's massive, and while she's not as attuned to magic yet as she wishes she was, she can still feel the power course around her and through her. This place has so much potential for her. She really does hope to hear what Tolfdir has to talk about and looks forward to the coming classes and lectures. The inside of the Hall of Elements is this grandiose open space where an instructor can talk to several different students at once. It's awesome. Seems she's the last one to arrive, though, and Tolfdir looks like he's about to start his lecture, so she goes to sit down.
We were just beginning. Please, stay and listen. So, as I was saying, the first thing to understand is that magic is, by its very nature, volatile and dangerous. Unless you can control it, it can and will destroy you.
Sir, I think we all understand that fairly well. We wouldn't be here if we couldn't control magic.
Of course, my dear, of course. You all certainly possess some inherent natural ability. That much is not being questioned. What I'm talking about is true control, mastery of magic. It takes years, if not decades, of practice and study.
Then what are we waiting for?
These apprentices seem kind of rude.
Please,
Don't get her
please.
wrong, she's
This is
also ready
exactly
to
what I'm
start
talking
and
about.
learn, but
Eagerness must be
Tolfdir has an
caution,
incredibly
or
valid
else
point about
disaster
magic
is
safety.
inevitable.
But we've only
Better to
just
take a
arrived.
year and be
You've no
safe
idea what
than
any of us are
just
capable of.
blow yourself up on your first fireball. That Nord apprentice definitely has a chip on his shoulder.
What do you think we should do?
She agrees she wants to learn practical matters, but she also has no desire to die haphazardly.
Well, your
She's not
classmates
stupid.
certainly seem to disagree with you.
No, don't listen to her. We can do it.
Okay,
Just
this
give us a
Khajiit
chance.
apprentice is already getting
All
on her
right,
nerves.
Settle down. I suppose we can try something practical. In continuing with our theme of safety, we'll start with wards. Wards are
Oh, she's heard about these,
that
and
block
she's actually
magic.
seen them in combat several times
I'll teach
already.
you all a
It'll be
ward.
really good to
We'll see
learn
if
how
you
they
can
work.
successfully use it to block spells, all right? Would you mind helping me with the demonstration? Are you at all familiar with
Tolfdir
ward
asks
spells?
Constantine if she'd be willing to help.
That's all right.
Why he
I
chose
can
her
teach you a
specifically,
very basic
who knows?
ward,
Maybe it's
one
because
that's
she
enough
wasn't
for the
rude
purpose
upon
of
meeting him
this
for the
lesson.
first time.
Now,
What she
if
does
you
know
just
is that
stand
he was
right
kind
over
enough
there,
to show her the
I'll
most
cast
basic
a
ward
spell.
spell
You
and
block
how
it
it
with the
should be
ward.
cast,
You
thus
go
allowing her to help in this
over there,
participation.
please, just opposite
As
me.
well, thanks to
Wouldn't want
her
anyone else
increase
in the
in
way.
understanding of alteration
Now,
magic
cast the
and magica flow, she doesn't actually expend any magicka when
Spell
using
and
novice
keep it
level
up.
spells.
Keep your ward up, or else this won't work. I don't want to hurt you. Over there, please, just opposite me. Wouldn't want anyone else in the way. Now, cast the ward spell and keep it up. Hold still. Excellent work.
She's not
Well,
really
I
sure
think this
why
is an
where she was
excellent
standing
start.
originally didn't count,
Like you
but
ought to continue
whatever.
practicing with
The spell
wards.
worked like a charm, though, and it was
everyone.
incredibly
That's
cool
all
to
for
just
now.
not be hit.
Keep it up.
She's gonna have to learn the higher level ward spells at some point.
What do you need? Yes?
Good to see Skyrim still has.
With
such
that,
fine-
the lecture is dismissed.
You'll give an old
Constantine
man-
went below the Hall of Elements to the practice space
Ah,
and found
excellent. Very
Tolfdir,
good.
who would be continuing
Today,
her
I'll
lessons.
teach you a useful
He told her
spell
many
that
other
might just
scholars
save
would
your
be
life.
willing to give her
If you
lessons
should
on
ever
their
fall
school
into
of
a river,
speciality
you'll
as
be
well.
very glad you learned
His
it.
first lesson was learning water
I will
breathing,
teach you how to
a
breathe
spell she
underwater.
desperately
exciting, isn't
wanted to learn, but hadn't had time to pick it up and study it.
Just let me know when you're ready to
Tolfdir
practice
also
the
gave her the
spell,
spell
all right?
book for water breathing and told her to go study it before coming back to him. She took advantage of the wide, open area of the Hall of Elements and sat down to study water breathing. This was a fantastic place to study. She didn't feel eyes on her trying to figure out if she was going to be a threat or not, like usual when she's in bars and taverns. Everyone here was willing and wanting to learn magic. Thanks to her already advanced understanding of the Alteration School of Magic, she breezed through the book and quickly understood how the spell was to be cast. She ran into her first scholar, Arniel Gain, who was weirdly and unnecessarily cagey about his so-called research he was working on. Off-putting, but she was aware many magic users are cagey about their research. Constantine returns to Tolfdir and informs him that she has now learned and understands the water-breathing spell. He seems genuinely proud in her ability to grasp its knowledge so quickly, and he tells her to go to Arniel Gain, the man she just met, and asks him and let him know that he sent her and that he should have some semblance of practice for her. Before speaking with Gain, she found the conjuration specialist, Finis Gester, and while she respects and understands that he's a master of his craft, he also had no reason to be so, weirdly rude, almost just incredibly egotistical. She'll learn from him, but has no desire to be anything more than an acquaintance.
I'll teach you some of what I know, but be careful.
You can see me?
She then met with Drevis Nellerin, the illusionist specialist here at the college. She'd always found illusion magic to be the weakest of the schools, but the fact that there was a specialist in it meant that she probably had a lot more to learn. Also, it was her weakest magic as well. Drevis, at the moment, didn't have a lesson for her, but did request that we help cleanse 3 focal points around the college using some special gloves. This is something she'll get to later.
Go to each focal point and remove whatever impurities you may find there. Return the gloves to me when you have finished. Please exercise caution. This is not a procedure without possible consequences.
She then ran into Feralda, again, who Constantine is growing to dislike more and more. She has this holier-than-thou personality that just really bothers her. There should be a place of learning and camaraderie, not who's better than who, and just because you've simply been around longer, they are better. Whatever. This being the case, though, she does sell quite a few important destruction spellbooks, and Constantine picked up Ice Shiv for that extra sneak damage, and Fireball because it's honestly about time she learned how to throw some fireballs. It's not that Constantine wants to dislike so many of the scholars, it's more so she just doesn't understand their outward attempts at posturing. Don't get it wrong, Constantine absolutely believes she will become a master in all schools of magic and will blow them out of the water. But she's also just never been one for blind arrogance upon first meeting someone. It's important she sizes up the individual first. In any case, she wanted to learn the Ice Shiv spell as quickly as possible, but also wanted to explore more of the college, so she went upstairs towards the Arcanium. As she was exploring, there was a whole second room that Tolfdir had actually just come from and left the door unlocked. She was pretty sure she's not allowed to be in here, but that's not gonna stop her. The room was filled with nothing but locked books, most likely part of a prized collection. These were all one-of-a-kind books. And she smiled. She was gonna nick these books for the museum's library. Books should never be banned or held behind glass simply because they're old or contain horrible knowledge. They should be enjoyed by all. She would just have to figure out how to remove them from the locks. Yeah, it looks like some apprentice was practicing levitation on the books and may have gotten a little carried away.
Need something?
She sits down in a relatively comfy chair and pulls out the Ice Shiv spellbook. She makes it her mission to get through the book. She chooses to study for a long period of time, first learning the intricacies of forming the correct shiv, and then being able to actually launch it. Having only ever really worked with fire, learning how to form a physical object like a crystal is proving a bit more difficult than she thought, but she does make it through the book and believes she now understands how the spell operates. She'll just have to find something to test it on.
Yes?
After that long study session, Constantine was exhausted. She starts to head for her room when she runs into the restoration specialist, Colette. She asks if we believe restoration's a valid school of magic, and yes, why wouldn't she? Well, apparently Colette thinks her colleagues don't fully agree with her and that it's not a real school of magic and whatever. Constantine was way too tired to deal with magic politics, but unless she was seeing things, and considering how tired she was, it's a possibility. It seemed like everyone else was just sort of pushing her around as she spoke, which does maybe lend some credence to her belief in her being disrespected. Constantine just sort of smiled and nodded and went on with her day. She was really tired and just wanted to head to bed. Before leaving the Hall of Elements, she did run into Urag, the main librarian, and spoke with him for a quick second. Seems he also has a job for her, but she just needs to head to bed for right now. She's too tired to deal with more work. She'll come back to him later. He did have a bunch of extra copies of books that she was going to probably buy from him so that she could stick into the library in the museum. She entered the dorms and turned and headed for her room. It had been a very long day of learning, and that bed was absolutely calling her name. Having woken up from an awful dream, she felt awake but also a bit drained, which was just never a great feeling. She did eat a quick breakfast to get some food in her and see if that helped. It didn't! But she did need to go and find Gain and see what task he needed help with. She found Gain in the teacher's quarters, and again, he just seemed super cagey about what it was he was exactly working on and what he wanted her to do. In any case, he told her to follow him as they were going out behind the college to the ice fields.
Yes.
Oh, joy, she loves the ice fields. She may freeze to death, but at least she won't drown now.
I guess you'll have to come with me. Good. The two of us then. Isn't this exciting? Just north of here. It's not far, but travel has become dangerous of late. Get ready.
They head out, and every time she steps outside, she hates the cold a little bit more. She needs to find a way to make her armor more bearable for the cold. Gain keeps pace in front of her, running like a man on a mission, which, honestly, in this case, I guess he really is. He is really into his research. They travel across the water and ice until they finally stop on an island-like patch of land.
We're finally here.
This is when Gain makes it known why Constantine was brought along for this little outing. So, apparently there's a crystal in the water that Gain really needs for his research, and we were brought out to retrieve it. This is annoying. Yes, Constantine guesses that she is at least practicing her magic, but she was basically taken on a trip because Gain was too lazy to actually want to swim and get the crystal himself. She rolls her eyes and agrees to get the stupid thing. She thinks the part that annoys her the most is that he doesn't even seem like this is a learning opportunity to him. This is more of just a, fetch this item for me because I don't want to. She casts the spell and hits the water. It's always fascinating to her that she's breathing, but the issue with water breathing is it does nothing for the temperature. The water is literally freezing, and she just wants to find this crystal as soon as possible so she can get out and warm up. She does actually find it, but the crystal seems destroyed and corroded. Gain won't be happy about this, but hopefully he's just annoyed by the crystal and not her. Though she assumes if he does turn into a threat, nobody would be around to witness his death. She returns from her dive, and he was nice enough to get a fire going for her. She hands him the destroyed crystal, and he is, admittedly, pretty annoyed at its corrosion. But none of that's targeted at her, so she does relax a little bit. He does appear to appreciate, in his own way, her help, and tells her to return to Tolfdir to know she finished the task he had set out for her.
Oh, it doesn't matter now. Anyway, you'd better talk to Tolfdir at the college. I'll see you there soon. And thank you.
She made her way back to the college and decides to quickly help Drevos with the focal point cleansing. He mentioned that there were 3 that needed cleansing, the main one in the courtyard near the statue, the one that was in the apprentices' dormitories, and the one that was in the teachers' living quarters. This was a fairly easy task, and feeling the rush of magicka around her as she cleansed them was a, admittedly, very interesting feeling.
Good. It's always encouraging.
Having removed the gloves and put her normal ones back on, she speaks with Tolfdir, who appreciates her helping out Gain, even if nothing actually came of it. He then lets Constantine know that she should go talk to several of the other scholars about their speciality and see if they have any lessons for us. She begrudgingly goes and speaks with Gester first. She's incredibly interested in the Conjuration Magic School. She just wishes Gester wasn't so abhorrently rude about everything.
What a shame.
Anyway, he wants us to learn how to summon a wolf familiar and get back to him.
And please also contain your summons to the college grounds. The locals do not need additional reasons to hate us. Are we clear?
She found a bench and opened the book. Thankfully, as this is one of, if not the most basic form of conjuration magic, it wasn't too difficult for her to learn the spell. She hardly had to even tap into the Oblivion plane to manifest the wolf, but she thinks part of this might have been because she's been around Ulf for so long. She has a good idea of what a wolf should look and act like.
Illusion, really.
Before going back to Gester to deal with whatever task he had in store for her, she quickly runs to Drevos to let him know that the focal points have been cleansed. He thanks her for her help, letting her know that he can already feel the change in the ambient magicka. How these focal points actually got polluted, she's not sure, and she also wasn't really in the mood to ask as she was pretty tired. She did ask him for any lessons in illusion magic, as this was her weakest form of magic. He gave her a Fury spellbook and told her to go study it and come back after she understood how to cast the spell.
Oh, I see. Yes, here. This is for you. Read carefully, all right?
She returns to Gester, letting him know that she can now summon a familiar. She's hoping he will give her something a little bit more challenging, but instead he gets this devilish smile on his face and tells her to follow him out into the courtyard. She is very suspicious at this point, but she agrees. He tells her to summon her familiar, as he's going to test it, with a potent frost atronach. 'Cause that's totally fair.
How quickly you've advanced. Most impressive.
She can't tell if his compliment is sincere or not, but she's pretty sure he's just messing with her. As expected, the Frost Astronaut absolutely destroys the wolf familiar, and Gester seems just incredibly proud of himself for this. Poor Ulf, though, he doesn't recognize the Frost Astronaut isn't actually an enemy, and he immediately starts attacking it. It's okay, buddy. Gester's just sort of a dick.
I'm sorry, but that was hardly a challenge.
Constantine makes it her mission now to learn everything she can from Gester and then surpass him. There is no reason for this level of arrogance to an apprentice, and it's amazing what the power of spite is going to do for her.
Perhaps one day, but not today. You still have so much to learn, and these spells are difficult. Well, I mean, for an apprentice like yourself. Keep this up.
She could feel her hand inching closer and closer towards the hilt of her sword and had to actively hold herself back from cutting him down immediately. There's no sense in killing him right now, as all the knowledge would be lost, but oh boy, could she feel the rage absolutely brewing within her. Of course, Gester, being who he was, also chose not to dispel the Atronach because it'll dispel itself. So, as a slight show of force, she killed the Atronach in front of him, just to let him know she's not just some toothless apprentice. Tired, she heads back to sleep, though the sleep is anything but restful. She wakes up from a nightmare, as well as this feeling or voice of being pulled towards Helgen, of all places. There was literally nothing there last time she visited it. It's like a sleepy little town. She's hoping this was just a one-off feeling, but she might have to check it out later, just to be sure. She had explored a bit more of the college, but nothing really stuck out to her, and she was starting to feel a little cramped, so she decided to head out into Winterhold proper. She had 2 goals for the day. The first was to go talk with that woman she had seen a few days ago arguing with someone, and then she also wanted to finally take the carriage to Dawnstar and check out this museum that she had heard about.
I've been looking for you.
Admittedly, it was more for the purposes of figuring out if anything was worth relocating, let's say.
Looks like that's it.
It's as she's leaving that she obtains an interesting letter from a courier that was magically enchanted to speak to her.
Dwarven ruins in the Reach. I believe they mark the entrance to a forgotten city. My brother went in a few days ago and hasn't returned. I need someone I can count on to go in after him and bring him back alive. I've heard great things about you, which is why I'm asking for your help. I'll be waiting for you in the ruins. Please hurry. And remember, riches beyond imagining. Cassia.
Yeah, that's definitely not weird or suspicious, but if the job is really just to find a lost brother in a dwarven ruin, she's not going to say no to that. Should be a relatively easy payday, all things considered. Trying to remember where that shop was, she turns around and it's smack in front of her. The inside is cold and cramped, but Constantine goes to talk with the storekeeper anyways and do a little bit of bartering before actually speaking with her.
So we can get by. Oh, a bit of this and a bit of that. Very
After a quick selling spree, she speaks with Birna about actually setting up shop here in Winterhold. She does not fully appreciate the question, but it seems she may not have enough coin to actually leave and move on. She does happen to let slip a bad trade she had recently made. Interested, Constantine asks for more information. Apparently, Birna had come into possession of a dragon claw, stating it was meant for Ingol's barrow. Now, this isn't a barrow Constantine was even relatively familiar with, but she was aware of the dragon claws and how Nord burial sites would use these as keys to a lock, usually to lock something in. Constantine asks if she could buy the claw off Birna, and she was delighted to get rid of the thing. It also only cost her 50 gold. Constantine now just had to actually find Ingol's barrow, and for that, she was probably at some point going to need to go do some research at the College of Winterhold library.
Fine, here you go. You get killed on account of this thing, it's not my fault. Got it? But I suppose if it does actually turn out to be worth something, let me know, will you?
And with that, Constantine adds another item to her ever-growing list of things that she wants to get done. She's not complaining, mind you, she just really needs to start prioritizing certain aspects over others. Next thing up is heading towards the inn, as this is where the carriage driver is hanging out. She needs him to take her to Dawnstar so that she can go and check out this alleged museum. She could walk, of course, but she's lazy and it's easier to just take the carriage.
Need a drink or something to eat?
She finds him exactly where she thought she would, hanging out behind the bar, warming himself up. She's not particularly sure if it's a good idea to get into a carriage with a driver who's most likely just drinking, but from looking at him, it seems like he was here mostly for fire and not for the ale.
Into the hold capitals.
This is her second time being near the gates of Dawnstar, but the first time she's actually entered. It's very clearly a smaller town, not as large or grandiose as Solitude or Whiterun, but it's not a terrible place, all things considered. She starts to wander around looking for this alleged museum.
Does your Skyrim ever get warm, husband?
No, not really.
She comes across the local blacksmith, keen to see if he can point her in the general direction of the museum. But he, instead, drops an interesting piece of information. He told her that she should probably get out of Dawnstar, and not in the "you're not welcome here" sort of way, but in the "it's for your genuine safety" way. Apparently everyone in the town's been having horrible nightmares.
Every night.
Alright, this is an intriguing development, and something she will definitely want to look more into. The Priest of Mara is said to be nearby looking into it. Now, Dawnstar has many mysteries, apparently, but she just doesn't have time to focus on this one right now. She leaves and wanders, finally finding a museum, mostly because she could tell based off of the weird sun-looking thing. And there was an individual clearly in a heated discussion with the opening of this museum. Seems it has to do with letting the past be dead.
And here comes my first visitor. The Museum of the Mythic Dawn is open, friend.
The Mythic Dawn? Yeah, that's got cult written all over it. But he, later known to Constantine as Silas, appears to also want to hire her for a job.
Let's talk inside.
Cult or not, she is always willing to take a job.
Come talk to me when you're ready to discuss.
Inside was not what she was expecting from a museum. She did not really know what to expect, but the guy's living room where he sleeps wasn't it. That being the case, though, what he actually has on display was incredibly interesting. A voice did speak to her, requesting she pledge herself to the Daedric Prince Mehrunes Dagon. It is most likely coming from the weird piece of burnt paper, but she denied it. If she was ever going to actually become the willing follower of anything, it wasn't going to be because something told her to.
Those robes were worn during the Mythic Dawn's secret meetings, where they plotted to bring Daedra Mehrunes Dagon into Tamriel. Each bolt of yarn used to make the robe was colored with a dye made from sacrificial blood.
Silas sounded way too excited about that.
Yes, that scabbard. Notice the insignia? An Oblivion Gate. A key symbol of Mehrunes Dagon, the patron Daedra of the Mythic Dawn. The commentaries on the Mysterium Xarxes were written by the Mythic Dawn cult leader, Mankar Cameron. He promised a paradise awaited his followers when they died, that they would be reborn by Mehrunes Dagon's side.
Pretty standard thing to tell your followers, but these books are definitely one of a kind.
blasphemous book written by Mehrunes Dagon himself. It's said that Mankar Cameron used the book to open a portal to a paradise where all his followers would live forever.
She likes what she sees. There's a good few truly unique artifacts. And she's going to accept and see what this job Silas wants her to do is.
First. After the Oblivion Crisis, a number of groups cropped up dedicated to wiping out the remnants of the mythic Dawn. One of these groups found Mehrunes' razor, the artifact of Dagon. They split it into 3 fragments and pledged to keep them apart forever. That was almost 150 years ago, and the pieces are still being kept by the descendants of that group, and they're right here, in Skyrim.
Oh, she knows where this is going. She's going to be requested to get all 3 parts. As she was thinking about it, and listening to him talk about who the descendants and who had the blade parts were, she realized, wait a minute, hadn't she picked up shards to a blade? She accepts, requesting she be compensated well, of course, but now even more interested, especially since she has the information about the Keepers. She's gonna have to look at this now and see if her hunch is correct. Opening the notes, she studies them and yes! Gonzal was the leader of the cracked Tusk bandit clan she had come across a while ago. She remembers there being an altar with a load of blade fragments on it. She's kept them on her, trying to figure out where or what they go to, and now she knows.
Look at them.
She hands the blade fragments over to Silas, who's clearly already overjoyed, and he was not kidding about paying her well. Usually these item retrieval contracts pay pretty low, but they're also not super dangerous. In this case, though, she got 800 gold for this contract. Absolutely well worth it. According to the notes, one portion's in Morthal and the other one's near Markarth. She doesn't really have it in her right now to be going cross Skyrim hunting, so for now, she's just gonna wait, and if she's in the area, she'll try to pick up the items. Honestly, the shards have been apart for years at this point. A little longer really won't hurt anybody. She did want to head back to Winterhold, though, and finish up her beginning lessons with the rest of the scholars. Finding the carriage driver, she requested she be returned to Winterhold. As she arrived, her mind wandered towards the dagger part Silas wants, as well as the museum itself. There were very clearly artifacts in there that deserved a more prominent location, specifically the Solitude Museum. She wasn't sure how she would acquire these items yet. Flat-out robbery feels like a bad idea, as he'd most likely know who did it. But getting rid of him is always an option, though he hasn't really proven much of a threat anyways, so it feels like kind of a waste. Oh well, just something for her to think on. And speaking of the Solitude Museum, she did another dump of items for shipment. Soon she will go back and help get these up. She just keeps being pulled in all these different directions. She has to get back to the museum and put everything up. Maybe she'll do that soon. Arriving back in the college, she finds herself face to face with the Archmage. He seems very aloof. He doesn't have the holier-than-thou quality that many of the others seem to have, especially the teachers. But he does give off an aura of being detached, or at least he tries to give off that aura. He does appear nice enough, though, and seems to really care for the well-being of the students.
But I do not and will not approve of any research or experiments that cause purposeful harm to your fellow members of the college. Are we clear?
After that interesting interaction, she goes back to her room to study the illusion spell Drevos gave her. It was Fury. Now, this spell, if casted properly and on a susceptible target, puts said target into a rage-filled state where they can't seem to differentiate friend from foe, meaning they'll attack anything, her or their allies included. This is an incredibly useful spell for her once she actually understands the nuances of illusion magic. This is something she sorely lacks right now. After said study session, she believes she understands how at least the basic form of Fury works, but she also does recognize it's probably not going to work on a person just yet. She does head to sleep, though, as studying always takes it out of her. She woke up having another nightmare, and again, a disembodied voice pulling her towards Helgen. Something's going on in that town, and she's not sure what, but she's gonna have to take a trip down south to investigate. Having found Drevos and letting him know of her ability to cast Fury, he gives her a task.
Well done.
So
There
there's
is
a
always
skeever's
more to
nest
learn.
just outside the college that she should go and practice Fury on.
Now that I
In
think
theory,
on it,
the skeevers should attack each other
Perfect
and
target.
to come
Your
back to
assistants will be
him
most
once they're all dead.
Use what you've learned.
She
But be
agrees
careful.
and sets
They're
off
faster
to
than you
complete
think.
on an extermination mission of
Clear
the
the
highest
pillars.
caliber.
With magic at your side, you'll have nothing to fear.
The nest is found exactly where Drevos said it would, and the skeevers come out to play. Her first Fury shot didn't seem to work as it just kept attacking her, but the second shot did appear to finally do the trick. In her frustration to kill them quickly though, she did pull out her sword and ice shiv to deal with the problem, which kinda defeated the purpose of learning how to use the illusion magic. Upon return to the castle, she then went about and did the rest of her introductory lessons with the rest of the teachers, until she came across her last and arguably most exciting one, until she saw who taught it. Sergius Tyrannus is the head of enchanting at the College of Winterhold, and oh boy, is he a piece of work. Like Gester and others, he's just so far up his own butt, it's probably a good thing he has anus in his name. Either way, she still needs to learn, and her enchanting is only half decent right now. While he was unnecessarily rude in every way, he did give Constantine a task to enchant a sword for some client. This seems like an incredibly simple task for her, but if it'll get her access to more knowledge, she'll do this sort of menial labor. For now.
There's Lion. Wants me to do some enchanting. What? Good. Enchanting is simple. Unless, of course, you were simple. Then, I can't help you. Let's see.
God, she hates this man so much right now. Talking down to her like that.
I'm sure you can figure
Again,
it out on your own.
she feels that
Assuming, of
rage,
course, that
and the hilt of her sword is starting to get a little heavy. But she takes a deep breath and lets it go. She makes it to the enchanting table and looks at the client's request again. It's really just an iron sword enchanted with fire. The fire doesn't even have to be very potent, so long as it's just got fire. She shrugs and puts the note away. This really is not going to be a difficult task for her. And she was right. She already knew how to enchant using fire, and she used a pretty weak crystal because why waste a good one on a client's sword with no specifications outside of fire? Once the enchantment had stabilized and kind of attached itself to the sword, she returns to Sergius to let him know she's done. She assumed he was going to take the sword and hand it over to some courier. No. It seems she has to go and give the item to the actual client themselves. Why? Who knows? There's no reason. This seems completely unnecessary and really just feels like a power trip for him. Oh my gosh, she wants to kill him. There are literally couriers to do this. This is their job. Fine. Whatever. She'll do it, but she needs to rest first. She is completely frustrated by this man. Instead of immediately resting, she decides she's going to go to her room and study Fireball instead. Best case scenario, she learns it immediately. Worst case, she at least starts to understand the properties of Fireball. It really is wonderful what a powerful tool Spite can be. And with that, this is where we're going to leave Constantine for now. Fuming at her incredibly rude teachers outside of Drevos and Tolfdir, but she also is recognizing how much she can learn. Now, I know this episode was a little less action-packed, but hey, you know, they can't all be swords, magic, and murder. There won't be an upload next week as I'm on vacation, but I am curious your thoughts on something. Would you guys like to see a supercut of all 10 episodes in one large video, or wait till we hit 15 or 20 episodes? In any case, thank you all very much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe as it helps me and the channel grow, and I will see you in the next one. Peace!